time this afternoon. You know, in which case we'll see if it's possible to review more then. But there were just one or two things I wanted to say. One, just because these are one or two things that came up in these classes we had at Land of Medicine, but there's some sort of confusion people had. One thing, it should be, maybe actually it's not so clear. The mind which is doing this meditation, you know, looking at the defects of, to carry on with the example we were using, the mind's looking at the defects, actually analyzing for, that's why Rinpoche is using the term 6 analyses, analyzing the defects, seeing the defects of the desire realm, and then the analyzing the first firm contemplation to see its qualities. That's special insight. That mind is special insight. Okay, that's worldly or mundane special insight. So then you can see that special insight isn't necessarily a mind realizing emptiness. And it's certainly not necessarily a mind directly realizing emptiness. And even the special insight which does realize emptiness doesn't necessarily realize it directly or non-conceptually, because when you're only an ordinary being, that, in other words, one that hasn't directly realized emptiness, the way that you move from the first of the 5 paths to the second, from the path of accumulation to preparation, or Rinpoche's terms are, anybody? Path of merit and preparatory path, okay. The path of merit and the preparatory path. The way that you move on to the path of merit, to the preparatory path, is by achieving special insight. And at that point, it's only a conceptual realization. So that's all really. Yeah. Oh, what I didn't say is, okay, so calm abiding, you get calm abiding. Remember, you move from the 9th of the 9 levels of concentration leading up to calm abiding. You go from you go from the 9th level to the calm abiding, or in other words, how you achieve calm abiding finally is when you achieve the rapturous ecstasy through the mind being stabilized on the object. And then within that calm abiding, you start to analyze, which is kind of mind-boggling, isn't it? Because a mind which is remaining focused, totally, focused on, without the slightest distraction on a given object, is now analyzing. So anyway, within calm abiding, you analyze, and when that analysis brings about, I guess you could call it a new level of rapturous ecstasy of body and mind that's been sort of like pulled out or brought out through the analysis, then you've achieved the special insight. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, did you say, I think you say, if I heard correctly, that going from the path of merit, the passage from the path of merit to the path, preparatory path, is when you realize special insight, That's what you just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
But actually,
Well,
that's
not
true.
not any special insight.
Yeah.
Special insight into emptiness. Yeah.
Yeah, that means the union of calm abiding and special insight on emptiness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should. I think it's good to qualify that.
Qualify what?
Yeah, the special insight.
I'm sorry, I don't get what you're saying.
No, I think what
What I said was when you
say-
achieve special insight.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The fact that I said special insight without qualifying it with the emptiness. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So when I said that when you move from the path of merit to the preparatory path, it's when you achieve special insight. I should have said the special insight realizing emptiness. Yeah. Yes. You're right. Yes.
Sorry, you achieve the union of calm abiding and special
But
insight
there's
on
not really any-
emptiness. That
there's
doesn't mean that you don't have special insight on emptiness before? Or what?
No. Really, there's no difference between the union of calm abiding and insight. A union of calm abiding and special insight, they're the same really, because when you have special insight, it's something you get through having, based upon having the calm abiding. So as soon as you have the special insight, you've got the union of special insight and calm abiding. It's not like you could get special insight without having the calm abiding. You could have the calm abiding without the special insight, but you can't have special insight without calm abiding, because it's defined as being a mind which, within having achieved calm abiding, you analyze the object, and through the analysis you get the rapturous ecstasy of body and mind, or the bliss of pliancy of body and mind, and then you've got the special insight, and that is the union of special insight and calm abiding. Thanks. Over here, you're going to have to run a bit, I think.
Can you tell me what path of preparatory involves? I'm not sure what that involves.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, well, well, what you're doing on the preparatory path is, so you've got your union of calm abiding and special insight, which realizes emptiness conceptually. So now your job is to keep meditating on emptiness until eventually it becomes non-conceptual, and you move on to the what Rinpoche calls the right seeing path, the Tonglam.
Thank you.
Okay. Was there anything else?
I have a question about what you were talking about before the break in terms of the 9 gradations of intensity of attachment or anger and so on. Is it explained in the teachings how one determines what the difference is, say, between the small and the middling small and the, middling, and like how do you know what your what level you might be at?
Yeah, maybe. I wonder whether you would really know precisely. I know that you get to the point where they've become so weak that they're not arising anymore, and you do wonder, well, are they not arising because they're not there anymore, or are they not arising for some other reason? Are they not arising because I've abandoned them, or why is it? And I think that what they do is that you have to analyze, you'd have to check your own mind, to see if there is something left, some kind of vestige of the... I think that maybe you even test yourself by, like bringing certain objects to mind or putting yourself in certain situations, and you would see if there's anything happens in the mind.
Yeah, but
I don't really know, but I think there is something like that goes on. You have to find out, are they not arising because, it's a bit like, you can spend some time in meditation. Suddenly, there are certain things that you used to be very interested in, you're not interested anymore, and you feel like it's because of, the force of your meditation, but maybe it's more to do with the force of not having been in a sort of threatening situation, or not met with the right object. So then you find yourself in certain situations. Maybe it's seeing a certain object, person, whatever it might be, or something somebody says, and you see some movement in your mind. You realize, oh, okay, I'm not free of this yet. It's still there. So it's sort of, I guess they have to do something like that just to find out, can something happen that's going to make this delusion, even if only weakly, cause it to arise or not. But otherwise, between that, I was just thinking, like if you think about how your life's going at the moment, you discover that for some time you haven't got really angry at somebody. You've got angry, but you haven't got really angry. Now that might not be a sign that you've abandoned the great anger, because you can imagine. I mean, even if you've never experienced it before, you've seen how people are, and you see it on television, you read in the books and so on. You know that it's possible to get so angry that you totally lose control, and the veins are standing out on your forehead, and you're yelling, and there's like people have heart attacks and stuff like that. So you know that you don't have that kind of anger. Not necessarily that you're totally free of it, but somehow it doesn't figure in your life. So for the time being, you're free of this great, and maybe middling great. It's a bit difficult to. I think it must be quite difficult to really say, oh yeah, so this one's a great one. That's a middling great one, kind of thing, when it arises. If you know what I mean. Generally speaking, there are intensities of anger and attachment and so on, and so almost arbitrarily, you could say that there are 9 levels. And that gradually, through the force of meditation, you can reduce that, so that the ones at the top of the scale don't arise anymore, and so on. So you see what I mean?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it seems to me that if they've gone to the trouble to say there are 9 levels, and there's the small, and the middling small, and the great small, et cetera, that, I mean, is it basically they're just basically sort of saying, oh, but there are a variety of gradations? I mean, it seems to me that if they've gone to the trouble to make the categories, that there would be, I mean, I understand what you've just said, but that there would be, that there's some reason why they would make those 9 categories. But maybe it doesn't clarify further in the teachings. It's possible.
I mean, maybe there is an explanation of this. I'm wondering for the moment if maybe it's just like this, that in the beginning, right at the very beginning, you know very well that you've got totally desire around mind. Now you want to do something about that. So you want this form realm mind. And so you know the process, you learn the process, and you start applying that process. And you can see that, it seems to be working. You don't get as angry as before. The attachment doesn't rise as much as before. So you're just going to keep going, and maybe you're passing through some of these stages. But then, as I say, you get to that point where now it's like, compared with before, it's like they're not arising anymore. And so you have to ask yourself the question. And there's this special, out of these 6, there's one of these 6 which is for that. It's for analyzing whether you've actually abandoned them before, and you have to. And this is something, as I say, I thought I heard that it meant like maybe bringing bringing an object of attachment to mind, somebody that you would normally have been very attached to. Now you think of them and you just see, is there anything happening here? Is there any kind of attachment arising? Because it might have been that you didn't get an attachment arising because your mind was occupied with other things, and that if you bring this object of attachment to mind, it's going to rise again. That's what often happens to us, ordinary people that haven't done this kind of concentration, this kind of meditation. So maybe it's that kind of thing, and so you're going to check, is there anything happening? Is there even a flicker of some kind of like seeing this object as nice, beautiful, not like before maybe, but just something. Is there something there? You discover that actually, yes, there is. So you've got to keep going. That's all you've got to do. You just keep going. And then at a certain point, it's totally gone. There's totally no interest at all in the desire around objects. But we'll have to, put that one on hold, I guess, and try and find out more.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes?
Just wait for a minute. I don't remember all the detail, but they do match up with the measure of moving from one access state to another as you're preparing to achieve an actual absorption.
Yeah, that's what I was saying actually. I couldn't remember exactly what happened on each of those, but I remember that one of them was this. It was where you're checking up to see if you've completely abandoned them, if they're not arising because you've abandoned them, or if they're not arising for some other reason. Yeah, you're quite right, and I also can't remember the details of what happens of each one. I heard a couple of weeks ago at LME, but it's gone by now. Okay, looks like that's it. So it's 10 to 12, and I think we can do our offering.